Should every gun have a 1.5x scope, and should every operator be 2 speed? I'll go back to the first one there. So, Guzz, should every gun have a 1.5x scope? Now, this is not yes or no or WRL. This is just, I want your thoughts on it.
Yeah, look, I think that this topic alone is probably one of the most topical discussion points at the moment, especially from like a ranked and competitive perspective. I think even casuals at this point are really chipping in. I am constantly seeing, Reddit threads, tweets, etc. about the 1.5 scope. And there's been a lot of different proposals on how to remedy this issue. And I think at this point, everyone is sort of on the same page that the 1.5 is a problem in the game. Now, it was introduced alongside a couple of other news sites a few years ago now, with Ubisoft trying to encourage a bit more variance and a bit more variety, which I think from a game design perspective fundamentally was a good idea, because everyone was getting a bit stagnant with site choices, and it does unfortunately add an ability to balance guns and operators now, which has probably become a bit of a topical point, right? Is instead of operators being balanced or changed or whatever, they're now removing the 1.5 times scope. So I think Ubisoft have kind of admitted at this point with their balancing changes that it is quite powerful. But the question now is, how do you address it? So one option, every gun, every operator gets the 1.5. Another option is you completely remove the sight. Nobody gets it. Another option is only the attack gets it, because the game inherently is still very defender-sided. Which one of those would work? I don't know. Other options include you rework the sight, make the reticule larger to be more cumbersome. You make the housing of the sight reduce more of your vision around it, because the 1.5 at its core is just perfect in every regard. It has the best magnification for medium range, long range, and you don't get caught off guard short range like you might with an ACOG. The reticule is incredibly small, so you get great vision. The housing around it is also very small, so you're not blocked in terms of like you might be with an ACOG like you were back in the day. So it's a lot to unpack. How would I fix it? It's tough. I don't like the idea of giving everyone the 1.5, because I think it inherently changes the engagement range too much in Siege, and the maps were not built around the 1.5 being in the game. If I was going to be radical, though, I would probably remove it completely from defense, and maybe not give it to every attacker, but maybe give it to like supportive attackers that can play the backline on attack, so that they have more of an inherent buff. Because like I said, and even in comp, the game's still quite defender-sided.
I think there's, my sort of view on it, there's a couple of ways you can approach this, and I think obviously a lot of the ways you mentioned probably nail on the head. You could look to honestly also, when you equip the 1.5x, your recoil gets adjusted, so that's a little bit harder to control the spray when you're actually using that scope. The only issue with that is it's not that it makes it worse, it's probably just not as fun to use. But that technically would add a skill element to it, wouldn't it? The other being, you kind of look at like, who are the top operators in terms of their gadgets, their utility, what they bring to the table. Have they got a 1.5x? If they do, take it away. And try and then give it to the operators that maybe don't bring as much to the table, right? Like your rooks and your docs that are just kind of like, they don't do too much. They don't have too much of an impact overall, but they have the 1.5x and they can obviously, use it and not have to worry as much about their utility. So you could look at it in that way. I think should your like Azamis have it? No, they already bring enough to the table, right? So any kind of operator that already brings a lot to the table absolutely should not have it.
But I mean, the easiest argument against that, though, and it's one I see often and one I probably agree with, does that then just lead to lazy balancing decisions and the devs just letting operators like your Rook or your Doc or whoever it is just rot? Like, okay, they have a good gadget. All right, we'll take away the 1.5. They don't have a good gadget. Okay, let's just not worry about the gadget because that's going to be a lot of work, which does make sense. Let's just give them the 1.5. An instance of that is Thorn, right? The Razor Blooms are the most inconsistent pieces of trap utility. So they take away the 1.5 from Capcan, they then give it to Thorn. Is that really the route that we want to be going down?
That's true.
I don't really know. You've got Warden, for instance, who is obviously the big talking point around this because nobody plays him for the utility. 99% of the rank stars that play him don't even know he has a gadget. He has a negative win delta, yet he's one of the most picked operators on the defense purely because he has the MPX with the 1.5. And I think it just goes back to my earlier point. Imagine a world, and this is something that would have to be sandboxed and on the test server and get a lot of feedback. Imagine a world in which nobody or a very slim number of defenders had the 1.5 and instead you prioritized it to the attack. I think that would be very, very intriguing. I don't think everybody needs it, and I certainly don't think that defenders need the 1.5.
Yeah.